Hey everybody, welcome to Spirit Breakfast, and today we are looking at Nehemiah 2 verse 2. We're still doing our twos, February, and we are Nehemiah 2 verse 2, so I'm going to read. It says, "Therefore the king said to me, why is your face sad, since you are not sick? This is nothing but sorrow of heart. I became dreadfully afraid." So these are Nehemiah's words, right? So at this point, Nehemiah was the coin bearer for the king, and he had never been sad in the king's presence before. But this day he turned up and he was sad. And Nehemiah was sad because the walls of the temple, Jerusalem, they had fallen, and he wanted to rebuild that. And if you how I like to the way Nehemiah speaks to me is about the destruction of the temple. And if you think about us as the children of God, we are temples of the Holy Spirit, right? So we are temples in ourselves. And sometimes in life, especially when we drift away from God, our temples can become destroyed. And that when a temple is destroyed, a temple is like it's got like a fortress, it's got like walls, right? So Nehemiah wanted to rebuild the walls. Why is it important to rebuild walls? It's because walls are what provide protection, right? So what happens is when the enemy comes and attacks your life, when you've been distant from God or far from God, and the enemy comes after you, he destroys your walls. When the enemy destroys your walls, you are left unprotected. So everything that comes your way just attacks you. If you think of a city without walls, right? I mean, like if you are an army and you're trying to attack two cities, and one city it's got a full-on wall on it and it's got guards and everything, and the other city is just a bunch of houses with no wall around it, which city are you going to raid first? You're obviously going to go for the simple city, the one that's just bare and open, right? It's got no walls around it, no protection. It's just free for all. Come and attack me, is basically what that city is saying. So, walls are protection, they actually protect us. And so, what happens is when we come back and we return back to God, just like how the children of Israel used to return back to God, is that He starts to rebuild our walls because He wants us to now be protected. And that rebuilding of walls looks like setting new boundaries, right? So, for example, when you were far away from God, maybe you had no walls around the words saying no, to sin or to wrong things, or even to people pushing you way more than what you can do. But when God starts to rebuild your walls, He's starting to give you self-discipline, self-control, power, love, but He's giving it to you in a Christ-centered way. So He's making you a stronger, more powerful being in Him, through Him, using His power. So what Nehemiah is showing here is that he's distressed because the walls are down. When the walls are down, there's no protection. Protection is what is needed. A lot of people, like when our hearts don't have that protection and they are not guarded, we find ourselves in difficult situations because there's no walls around, there's no protection. So that's why Nehemiah is distressed, because temples need walling around them. We need protection, God's protection, and His governance in our lives, the way He leads us and advises us. That's what protects us. So when you walk with Christ, it's not just about this, the way the world tries to paint it, that, oh, it's just about trying to do good, and it's not only that. You get this amazing protection. You get this. Christ becomes your governor, and He's got walls around you where He protects you from the evil one. If something evil is coming, He will let you, using the Holy Spirit, and say, hey, stay away from that. Don't talk to that person right now. This might be coming your way, that might be coming your way. Don't worry about that. Things like that. God does that. He loves us so much that when we are in constant communion with Him, we are protected. We are like Jerusalem with its walls up and with the guarded the gate, and proper little fortress that is protected, right? So Nehemiah here is looking distressed. So what I wanted to talk about today, actually, I've completely digressed. is that I wanted to talk about how Nehemiah looks distressed and the king notices his distress. So, only reason why the king notices Nehemiah's distress is because he's a wholehearted servant. He's a servant who turns up for the job every day looking like he's come to do the job. He's been serving the king wholeheartedly, and by his behavior and how he turns up for his job every day, the king has grown fond of him. The king actually knows him to the point where the king knows his facial expressions. He actually knows when he's happy, such that today when he's sad, the king can see that he's sad. And the king actually knows that he's not sick. This is the type of relationship that grows when you become a true servant and you serve someone wholeheartedly. They actually, even though they're the king, they start to know you, know your facial expressions, know when you're ill, know when you're not ill, know when your heart is broken, know when you're sad. So this is just an encouragement that, whatever you are serving in, serve wholeheartedly, because that's where your blessing is going to come from, and it will surprise you. So Nehemiah comes, he tells the king, and then the king is like, whatever you need to rebuild those walls, I'm going to provide it. Like, whatever you need, right? And even writes him a letter, and he turns up and he starts doing the work. And he did it in record time. It was the quickest it's ever been done because he had all the provisions available for him. And where did this start off? It started with his wholehearted service to the king when he was doing his job as a wine bearer. He was doing it wholeheartedly, and the king actually began to know him really well, such that whatever he needed, the king was ready to give it to him. So don't take for granted what you're doing in your day-to-day life. Don't take for granted the people you are serving. Don't take for granted the people you are doing work for and everything, right? And they will grow to love you as you are so genuine in the way you behave and genuine in the way you serve. And as they do that, one day when your day of need comes, trust me, they're going to be so ready to help you. God would have already prepared provisions for you through them. So just make sure that, wherever God calls you to serve, serve with your whole heart. Just serve with all your heart, and you'll be amazed at where your provision comes from. You'll be even surprised that I didn't realize this king knew me. I didn't even realize he knew when I'm happy or when I'm sad, right? But he does. Why? Because he's been watching you, because you're such a great person, and the behavior you bring to work and to serving him is so great. So yeah, just remember that wholehearted service brings favor into your life. So whatever you do, do it with all your heart. Do it as though you're doing it unto God, because you really are doing it unto God. And as God is watching, he's just thinking, okay, yeah, look at what she's doing. She's practicing the art of honor, and she's respecting that person she's working for, and that person is starting to feel, really fond of her. And, the blessing, her next blessing is going to come through his hands. When God does things for us, he always does it through people, right? He always uses people here on earth to do things for us. So, yeah, serve wholeheartedly. Don't serve for the king to give you stuff. Serve as though you're serving unto God, right? Serve wholeheartedly. Serve wholeheartedly. And you also just breed good relationships around you. Isn't it nice to work for someone who knows when you're sad or when you're sick? It's just amazing, isn't it? So yeah, serve wholeheartedly, and you'll breed good relationships around you, and you'll bring favor into your life. Anyway, have a blessed day. Bye bye.